In the heart of a city that never slept, where the neon lights flickered like the pulse of ambition, lived a man named Victor. He was an ordinary figure in the crowd, a cog in the vast machine of urban life. But within him simmered an extraordinary hunger. Victor worked as a financial analyst, a position that granted him a modest income, but offered little in the way of fulfillment. Every day, he watched as wealth flowed around him, a river teeming with opportunities that he could only observe from the banks. The glitzy cars, the extravagant parties, the luxurious homes, these were the dreams that danced in his mind, tantalizingly out of reach. As the years passed, Victor's discontent grew. He became obsessed with the idea of wealth, convinced that it would bring him happiness and respect. He studied the lives of the rich and powerful, noting their every move, every decision that seemed to elevate them above the rest. In his darker moments, he whispered to himself that he would do anything to join their ranks, even if it meant crossing lines he once deemed sacred. It was on a particularly dreary Thursday evening, while nursing a drink in a dimly lit bar, that Victor met Marcus. Marcus was everything Victor aspired to be: charming, wealthy, and utterly ruthless. He spoke of opportunities that lay in the shadows, of deals that could change a man's life overnight. As Victor listened, captivated, Marcus leaned closer and shared a secret that would alter the course of his life forever. "There's a way to make a fortune, Victor," Marcus said, his voice low and conspiratorial. "It requires a certain commitment, but those willing to take the plunge can reap unimaginable rewards. You see, wealth is not just about hard work. It's about seizing opportunities, even if they come at a cost." Victor felt a thrill of excitement mixed with trepidation. He had always been a law-abiding citizen, but the allure of wealth was intoxicating. Marcus painted a picture of a world where morality was a luxury few could afford. He spoke of a rival businessman, a man named Eduardo, whose empire was ripe for the taking. "He's a good man," Marcus admitted. "But good men rarely survive in this game. You want wealth? You have to be willing to do what others won't." Days turned into weeks, and Victor found himself unable to shake Marcus's words from his mind. He began to research Eduardo, learning everything he could about the man who stood in the way of his dreams. He discovered that Eduardo was not just a businessman. He was a philanthropist, known for his charitable contributions and community outreach. This only fueled Victor's internal conflict. He felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him, yet the thought of wealth was like a siren's call, luring him closer to the edge. Finally, after weeks of tormenting contemplation, Victor made his choice. He reached out to Marcus, who promised to guide him through the process. They devised a plan that was as cunning as it was dark. It involved sabotage, deception, and ultimately, murder. Victor knew that Eduardo had enemies, and they would exploit those rivalries to frame him for the crime. The plan was meticulous, each detail calculated to ensure their escape from justice. The night of the deed arrived, cloaked in shadows and uncertainty. Victor's heart raced as he approached Eduardo's office building, a sleek structure that gleamed under the moonlight. He felt a mix of fear and exhilaration, the thrill of stepping into a world he had only ever dreamed of. The act itself was swift and brutal, a culmination of his dark desires. In the aftermath, as he stood over Eduardo's lifeless body, a wave of triumph washed over him. He had crossed the ultimate line, and now wealth was within his grasp. But the euphoria was short-lived. The days following the murder were a blur of anxiety and paranoia. Victor and Marcus carefully orchestrated their alibi, but the weight of their actions bore down on Victor like a suffocating shroud. He had expected to feel liberated, but instead, he was haunted by Eduardo's face, the kindness that had once defined the man, now replaced by a haunting emptiness. As time passed, Victor's initial thrill began to erode, replaced by a gnawing sense of guilt. The wealth he had craved came, but it was tainted. He found himself surrounded by opulence, yet he felt utterly alone. The parties that had once seemed glamorous were now hollow, filled with laughter that echoed against the walls of his conscience. Each clink of glasses reminded him of the life he had extinguished, each smile a mask that concealed the darkness he had embraced. Marcus, once a trusted ally, became a source of increasing tension. He grew restless, demanding more from Victor as they expanded their operations into murky territories. Victor's initial ambition began to warp into something darker, a relentless pursuit of power that overshadowed his original desire for wealth. He found himself making decisions that he would have once deemed unthinkable, justifying each choice with the belief that he was entitled to everything he had gained. But the past has a way of catching up with those who try to outrun it. Rumors spread through the city like wildfire, whispers of Eduardo's murder reaching the ears of the authorities. Victor's carefully constructed facade began to crumble as he faced the consequences of his actions. Paranoia seeped into every aspect of his life, and he became a prisoner of his own making, trapped in a gilded cage of his own greed. In the end, Victor was not only forced to confront the reality of his actions, but also the emptiness that wealth had brought him. The riches he had once believed would fulfill him became a burden, a constant reminder of the man he had killed. The ultimate irony lay in the fact that in his quest for wealth, he had sacrificed his humanity, losing not only Eduardo, but also the man he had once been. As he sat alone in his lavish penthouse, surrounded by the spoils of his ambition, Victor realized that the price of his greed was far greater than he had ever anticipated. The darkness he had embraced consumed him, leaving behind only a hollow shell of the man he used to be. In his pursuit of wealth, he had lost everything that truly mattered, and now the consequences of his choices loomed over him like a specter, a constant reminder that some paths, once taken, can never be retraced.